The summer of 2018 was supposed to be a time of new beginnings for the Watts family. Sean-Ann Watts, a devoted mother, was pregnant with her third child. Her two little girls, Bella and Celeste, were growing up in a home filled with love, or at least, that's what everyone believed. And Chris Watts, the quiet, mild-mannered father, was supposed to be the man who held it all together. But something changed. It began with a message. Then another. A name that Sean-Ann had never heard before. Words sent in secret. Plans made when no one was watching. Day by day, Chris Watts was slipping further away from the life he had built, drawn into a world he refused to acknowledge in public. And by the time the truth was laid bare, it was already too late. On the morning of August 13, 2018, Sean-Ann Watts and her two daughters were gone. Their home was silent. Their beds were empty. And when Chris Watts stood before the cameras, pleading for their safe return, no one could have imagined what would come next. The truth. The deception. And the emails that revealed everything. This is the untold story of Chris Watts and Nichol Kessinger, the messages that connected them, the affair that destroyed a family, and the chilling path that led to murder. Frederick, Colorado. A quiet town where neighbors greet each other on morning walks, where children play in driveways without a care in the world. Nestled within this community stood the Watts family home, a spacious, two-story house on Saratoga Trail. A home that, from the outside, seemed filled with warmth, love, and stability. Chris and Sean-Ann Watts were the picture of an ideal family. High school sweethearts turned husband and wife. They shared everything, two beautiful daughters, Bella and Celeste, and now, another child on the way. Sean-Ann, a thriving entrepreneur, shared glimpses of their life on social media, birthdays, vacations, heartfelt posts about her love for Chris. To the world, they were happy. But behind closed doors, cracks were beginning to form. Financial struggles had taken their toll. The house they lived in, a home they once saw as their dream, was now drowning them in debt. Chris, the quiet, reserved husband, had started to pull away, while Sean-Ann, ever the fighter, was trying desperately to hold everything together. And then, there was someone else. At Anadarko Petroleum, where Chris worked, he met Nichol Kessinger. She wasn't a stranger, she had worked at the same company, though their interactions had been brief. But something changed in June of 2018. What started as casual work conversations soon turned into something deeper. Late-night messages. Shared secrets. Long phone calls when no one was listening. The more they spoke, the more Chris felt like a different man, one free from responsibility, from the weight of his marriage, from the life he had built. And soon, he was willing to risk everything for it. On the surface, the Watts family was intact. But every word, every email, every hidden exchange between Chris and Nichol was chipping away at the life Sean-Ann had fought so hard to protect. And within just a few short weeks, that life would be gone forever. What began as a series of harmless work emails quickly evolved into something far more intimate. In early June, Nichol Kessinger reached out to Chris, initially discussing projects at Anadarko Petroleum. But the conversation didn't stay professional for long. Each reply carried a little more warmth, a little more familiarity. Soon, the formalities vanished entirely. These weren't the words of a man trying to hold his marriage together. These were the words of a man who had already begun to let go. By late June, their relationship had moved beyond emails. Text messages became a daily ritual. Secret meetings after work turned into passionate encounters. Nichol, unaware of the true state of Chris's marriage, believed she had found something real. Chris, in turn, began rewriting his own reality, one in which Sean-Ann and the girls no longer existed. As the affair intensified, Chris's behavior at home began to shift. Sean-Ann noticed the change almost immediately. He was distant. Cold. The once affectionate husband who sent her good morning texts and played with his daughters in the evenings was now emotionally absent. He stopped answering her calls. Stopped responding to "I love you" with anything more than a forced "love you too." He had just come from Nichol's house. Chris's two lives were colliding. One with his wife, daughters, and unborn son. the other with the woman who made him feel like a new man. And as the pressure mounted, he felt trapped between the two. In his mind, there was only one way out. By the time the sun rose over Frederick, Colorado, something was terribly wrong. Sean and Watts was missing. Her daughters, Bella and Celeste, were nowhere to be found. Her phone, purse, and even her shoes, items she would never leave behind, remained inside the house. And yet Chris Watts appeared calm. Too calm. "She was just gone when I woke up," Chris told police, his voice measured, his eyes darting away as he spoke. "I don't know where she went." His story was shaky from the start. He claimed Sean had returned from her business trip in the early hours of the morning, but there was no proof she had ever left the house again. Security footage from a neighbor's camera only showed one person coming and going that night, Chris. "That truck never moves like that," Nate pointed out. "Something's up, man." Chris stood beside the officers, arms crossed, shifting uncomfortably. He rubbed his head, sucked in his lip. Signs of stress, of something breaking beneath the surface. He stood in front of the world to say, "If someone has them, please bring them back. I need to see my kids again." But there were no tears. No trembling voice. No panic in his words. Just a hollow performance that sent a chill through those watching. And then the police station, August 15, 2018. Chris Watts sits across from investigators. The polygraph machine wires wrap around his arms like a trap tightening around him. "Did you physically cause Shanann's disappearance?" "No." "Are you lying to me?" "No." "Chris, you failed this test." "Miserably." "Chris, we know you did this," Agent Graham Coder says. "We just need to know why." "Dad?" Chris's voice cracks. I did it." Chris spins a tale of desperation. He claims he saw Sean strangling their daughters, that he panicked, that in a blind rage he did the unthinkable. But the forensic evidence would tell a much darker story. 2 small oil tanks. A shallow grave nearby. This was where Chris Watts had discarded his family, treating them as if they were nothing more than an inconvenience. The truth was unraveling, but Chris Watts was still trying to hide behind his lies. His final admission, the real story of what happened in the early morning hours of August 13th, would shock even the most hardened investigators. I just didn't want to do this anymore." On November 19, 2018, the final chapter of this horrifying case unfolded in a courtroom filled with grief and anger. Chris Watts sat motionless, dressed in an orange jumpsuit, shackles around his wrists and ankles. There would be no trial. No lengthy legal battle. Just a single, devastating admission of guilt. "How do you plead to the charge of first-degree murder?" the judge asked, his voice steady but firm. "Guilty," Chris answered, barely above a whisper. His voice cracked, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. But there were no tears. No emotion. Just a hollow shell of a man who had destroyed everything he once claimed to love. "He stole my whole family from me," Sandra said through tears. "I trusted you to take care of them, not kill them. I loved you like a son. This is the most inhumane and vicious crime I have handled in my career," the judge declared. "You may not have received the death penalty, but you will never again see the outside of a prison cell. No chance of appeal. No possibility of release. A lifetime behind bars." Chris Watts may have been the one who carried out the murders, but in the court of public opinion, Nichol Kessinger was guilty too. The woman he had an affair with, the woman he had been willing to kill for, became one of the most despised figures in America. She changed her name. Moved away. Disappeared from the public eye. Some say she went into witness protection. Others believe she's living a life of anonymity, forever haunted by the role she played, intentional or not, in the destruction of an innocent family. Chris Watts spends 23 hours a day in a 6-by-8-foot cell. No visitors. No hope. Just the monotony of prison life and the unbearable weight of his own guilt. "There's not a day that goes by that I don't hate myself for what I did," Chris admitted in a rare interview from behind bars. I took away their lives, and mine. But remorse means nothing to those he left behind. His in-laws refuse to speak his name. His former friends call him a monster. And the world will never forget the man who destroyed his own family for a fleeting affair. Years later, their names are still spoken. Not as victims, but as reminders of a tragedy that should have never happened. My daughter was beautiful. My grandbabies were angels. They didn't deserve this. No one does. She never saw the betrayal coming. No one did. But the world will never forget. A mother. 2 innocent children. A life that was supposed to be filled with love, torn apart by betrayal and deception. Could this tragedy have been prevented? What warning signs were overlooked? Were there moments, small, seemingly insignificant details, that, in hindsight, pointed towards something far more devastating? Your voice matters. Your thoughts could help others recognize the dangers of manipulation and deceit before it's too late. Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this deep dive into the case insightful, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more in-depth true crime stories that reveal the truth behind the headlines.